I think by now we are well, most of us are familiar with the Teams application. So it's basically a collaboration platform that is designed for groups to work together more efficiently and effectively. Okay, so basically it's your communication and collaboration tool within your working environment. It works just as your apps like your WhatsApp and even your Zoom for meetings. Okay, so it has all those capabilities and even more in terms of security, for instance, because it's sitting on your organization's domain, you are able to get covering from your security policies and even your compliance policies and all that. So it makes it a secured place to have all your organization communication and then collaboration. Now, in summary, with Microsoft Teams on your PC, Mac, or your mobile device, you can pull together a team. You can use the chat instead of emails. Okay, so whenever you have those back and forth emails that you send with your colleagues or even external people, you can use the chat in Teams instead. Okay, you can also securely edit files at the same time, which is co-authoring. Okay, so that's a feature you have in there where you can actually open a document up with your colleagues and both of you work on it at the same time in real time. You can also see likes, mentions, replies, and then with just a single tap, you're able to get to those actions and then also perform them. We will look at how we can do all this in the next few minutes. Now, you can also customize Teams by adding our notes, websites, and applications to chats, to groups, so that we can easily make reference to them while we are collaborating with our colleagues. Okay. Now, just so we know, I'll be doing a scenario-based sort of training. So before we go deep into it, I'll give a scenario that we'll be using throughout the session, just so that there's some form of consistency, and then we also get the idea of using the Teams application in our day-to-day activities. Okay, so currently I'm signing into my Teams application, as you can see, and this is a desktop version. Now we see some icons on the extreme left pane. Okay, we see our activity here, and anytime we see a bell notification, we know it stands for a notification or activities that are taking place within the Teams application. So we see that we have some notifications here popping up for us. Now, when you have a lot of them, you have the option to even filter through the activities so that you look at which one is of more importance to you, and then you can go ahead and pay attention to that. Now, the more options we see, we can mark all as read, and then we can also customize the settings to our notification. Now, you also see that we can sort out our notification area with the unread and at mention buttons here. So the unread is just going to show you the notifications that you've not opened yet. And then at mention is a feature where people are able to draw other people's attention to a message they want to pay, they want to get response to. Okay, so if I at mention a colleague in a group chat, for instance, it's going to pop up in the notification area, and they are going to see that someone is seeking for their attention in a group, and so they can easily click on it and it will take them straight to that conversation, and then they can go ahead and do as they are supposed to do. Now, next we have the chat area, as we can see. So the chat area is for all our one-on-one conversations, our group chats, and also, as we can see, we see that whenever we have a meeting, for instance, okay, we get the resources of the meeting stored in our chat area. So this is one of the meetings that we've held here. So you can see that when you come to this area, you can get access to the recording of the recording to the meeting and other resources that are so if there was a Q&A, you get all the Q&A session, the questions that people ask and all that. So just for further analysis and all that. So that's what we get here. So aside from your individual conversations and group conversations, you also get the conversations from your meetings and all that. Then we also see Teams here. So as we always see, there's the app itself is called Teams, and then we have a Teams session. Now, the simple difference is the Teams, one is a nominal one that is for the entire Teams application, and the other one is a functional one, which has to do with the various groupings that you have or that you'll be creating to manage the conversations within the organization. So those are also called teams. And when you come here, you can see some of the teams that you've been added to. And then as an admin or as a designated user, you can also create a team from here as well. So we'll be looking at it later. Then we see our calendar here as well. So for this session, we'll be looking at setting up our meetings and then probably joining them. So to be able to do that, you have to get a calendar in session, and then you can view some of the meetings that you're a part of, as you can see here. And then we'll also see how we can utilize the calendar to manage and set up our meetings. Now we also see the call area here. Now the call area gives us some sort of information about our calling activities. Okay, so here we see the history of our calls. We see all the call activities here. If you need to check the missed calls and all that, you can manage all those from here. You can even initiate a call, either a video or audio call from here as well. Now we also see an app here called the OneDrive. Okay, and one thing the Microsoft Teams does well is it's able to integrate all the other Microsoft solutions that you have within the Microsoft suite of apps. Is able to integrate them smoothly into the Teams application, so you can access all those applications in one place. And this is just so that you can do all your work in one place rather than switching in between apps to access some of your apps you want to access, like SharePoint, OneDrive, Planner, and all those applications. Okay, so you can see that there's our OneDrive here, and we can easily select any file and then share with our colleagues when they need be, or even if we need it for our work, we can go ahead and do that. Now, this is by default. We see the OneDrive here by default, but if you need to view more apps, we see the ellipsis here. By clicking on it, you can see some list of apps that you can add here and then get access to it within the Microsoft Teams application. So we see some of the apps there. You can even search for them as you wish. And then we also have the same option here. So by clicking on these apps, you get a whole platform where you can access your apps from. And then you can just select whichever one you want for your need. Now at the top here, so at the top, we see our search bar at the top here, and it basically helps us to find users or basically items that we want to be searching for within the Teams application. So you can search for documents, you can search for even some content of a message that you remember you shared with someone, but you don't remember exactly who you shared it with. So when you need to make reference to it, you can just search for it and then it will pop up and then you get all the options you want. Now, just by clicking in that space, we see that it gives us suggestions on some users we have within my domain or within our organization. And I can just click on anyone to start a conversation with the person. So this is one way we can start a chat from the search bar that we have here. Now you also see that if you hit any key, it gives you the users or people with the letter in their names. It gives you the channels. It goes down even to the file names that you have and even some of the messages that you've sent. Okay, and then if you need to streamline your search, you have the options here at the top to sort of sort the search that you are trying to make. Now for the advanced users, you can do some quick activities using the search bar. And what I mean is that by clicking on the forward slash key on your keyboard, you see some quick actions that you can perform using the search bar. Okay, so we see available, for instance, so you can set your team status to available quickly from here rather than going through the process of locating where this option is. We see we can start a chat from here. So let me just demonstrate one. So for instance, we're starting a chat. Once you click on it, you have the option to add someone, a user in the session here, and then you can just type your message in here, and then you just like that, you send a quick message using your search bar. Okay. Now, moving towards your right, you see another ellipsis tool here. So once you click on it, we are able to see the settings area where we can customize our Teams application. Okay, so the Teams app itself, if you need to customize all the various aspects of the Teams app, you have that option there as well. And we see that we can also cast the Teams application to some team devices that we would have. Okay, now if you're also interested in your keyboard shortcuts, you also have that option here that you can choose from. Now moving on, we see our profile manager here. So this is the area where we are able to tell the account you are currently signed into. Now, before now, you could only sign into one profile at a time. So it means that if you have access to your personal Teams profile, and then you have maybe your work, and then you have another account for admin, anytime you need to do some sort of work in any of the profiles, you have to sign out and then sign in with all the other accounts. Currently, Microsoft has been able to develop the app so that we can add as many accounts as we want at the same time, and you can also easily switch between them and then get work done immediately. Okay, so we see that option to add another account here. Once you click on it, you can go ahead and add all your accounts in there. Now, another thing we can see within our Teams application is the status area. Okay, so I mentioned status area in the search bar. Now, basically, Teams is able to automatically determine the status of your activities anytime you are using the Teams application. So, for instance, if you are in a meeting, by default, it's able to set your status to busy so that it prompts your other users that at that time you are busy. And so anytime someone shares maybe a message or something with you, it might probably take time for you to respond. Also, you can come here and actually change the status of your current status to, also prompt others on what is happening within your Teams application. Now you see that even as I am presenting here, you see that it states that I'm presenting in a meeting. Now I can change it, and then it's going to notify other users as well. Now we have the option to also set a work location, as we see here. So if in your organization you have some people who work within the office, and then you have others who have the remote options as well, you can also get that option here, and then set it so that people will know when you are in the office and when you are out of the office. So you have that option here as well. And then we also see we can set a status message for the status that we set. Okay. Now we realize that we see another notification icon here. In here. Now in here, it's notification that takes place within any of the profiles that have been added here. Okay, so if there's any activity happening in any profile, it's going to notify you here so that by just a click, it will take you straight to that profile, and then you're able to also get work done in there and efficiently. Okay. So basically, that's about it with the Teams application. That was a general overview. Now we want to take them one after the other. And before we do that, like as I mentioned earlier, I want us to use a scenario so that we can easily understand what we are doing. Okay. So I've created a company called ABC Company Limited. Okay. And no, I didn't create it. I've been employed there, and we have many branches. Okay, and I'm the lead HR for one of the branches. Okay, so ideally, we've also adopted other M365 solutions like Planner. So we use Planner to actually set out our plan for the week and even sometimes to the month. Okay, so anytime I'm given or I'm assigned a task, I get a notification of it, and then I can go ahead and check whatever the task is, and then I can perform the activity in there. Okay, we also have adopted other solutions. Okay, so we'll be looking at how we can navigate through the app and use it to do our work that we normally do. Okay, so first off, as I said, I come to work on a Monday morning, and then the first thing I want to check is my activity area. Okay, so you realize that within the activity area, I have some notifications here that I haven't paid attention to. So I can, at a glance, I can see that I've been assigned tasks within the planner tool. And even by just clicking on it, it shows you that entire plan for you in there. Okay, so quickly you can see what you have to do for the week. and all that. So basically, these are all the tags that have been assigned to me. Okay, so we see that because it's an HR, we are trying to employ new people to work in other departments, okay, like marketing and all the other departments. And so I've been tasked with all this to conduct interviews, schedule interviews, review the applications, and all that. Now I come here, I see a lot of them, but definitely I know that some of them will be more important than others. So as the leader, I want to be able to find what is important so that I tackle those ones first. Okay, so I would like to filter my tasks to the most important so that I see the ones that has been marked important. Now, as I do that, I get these three, and then I decide to undertake this for today. Okay, so I have to update the HR policies. I have to review the applications, those who have applied so far, and I have to start processing the payroll. Okay, so now that I've done that, I've seen what I have to do, and then I come to the chat area. Okay, because for one of the activities, I need to review the applicants. But then I didn't get the information about that. So I want to hit up one of my team members who I'm sure has information about those who have applied to find out the status of the application, and if there's any reports or if there's anything they need to share with me to get my work done, they can go ahead and do that. Okay, so now we're going to see how we can start a new chat. We've already seen how we can use the search bar um, to start a chat. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, you can just go to the search bar and search for any user that you want to have a chat with. Okay, so just search for it. Now, know that anytime you search, it's just going to give you people within your organization. Now, if you need to have a chat with external people outside of your organization, then you need to type their full email address to be able to search externally for them and then have that conversation with. Okay, so by just clicking on it, you can go ahead and start your conversation with the user. But aside from that, when you click on the chat area and you come to the space here, you see an icon here, the new chat icon, which is some sort of a box with a stroke in it. Okay, by clicking on it, it gives you the space or the option to input either a name of a user, an email address, or a group that has already been created, or even tags. Okay, so tags are a way of labeling users within the organization. Okay, so if you have any style of labeling your employees, you can just input that tag here, and then you just create a group out of that tag. Okay, so we want to start a chat. I want to start a chat with my teammate, Nora. Now you see that as I enter Nora's name here, I have the option to add other users. Okay, now note that once I add an extra user, it automatically becomes a group chat that we are creating. Okay, so I'm mentioning this so that I don't have to come back to creating a group chat from scratch. Okay, so we see that we can add as many as we want and then create a group chat from here. But what we are looking at is just creating a one-on-one conversation for now. So after inputting the name, I come down to the text area and then input my message. Okay, so I send a hi. Okay, then she responds. And then I go ahead and ask for the document I'm getting from here. Okay. Okay. So one thing we can also see within the text area is some icons next to it. So these are all ways you can format a message that you want to share. Now we've already spoken about that in the first session, so I'll just skip it. And then while I wait for Nora to share the file with me, okay, we see that we are currently in the chat area. Okay, so here's where all the conversations take place. If we share any file, everything is going to be in here. And after a while, it becomes quite a busy area to even locate some of the items that you'll be looking for. Okay, so we see that we also have a default files area here that helps you to sort out your files from your chat. Okay, so that whenever you are trying to make reference to any of the files that you will be looking for later, you can just come to your files area and then access them from here as well. Now we also see the add a tab button. Okay, so as part of this conversation, I can go ahead and add maybe an application I want to I want I want Nora to also have an we'll be able to also reference for the conversation we are having. Okay, so these are some of the tabs that we can add. You see, we can even add a website, for instance, to this particular chat that we are having. Okay, so let's say if I want to add, so I remember I saw a blog somewhere and I want to add it here for Nora to be able to see, and then we can collaborate on that. I can quickly add that from here. Let me just pick this up. Okay. And then once I save it, you realize that it adds it at the tab here. And then instead of asking her to move out of the Teams application to go and check the blog, you realize that everything stays within the Teams application for all of us to have access to. Okay, so these are some of the smart ways we can work with our colleagues within the Teams chat area. Now, while we are having a conversation, I realize that I need to get some quick information because I realize her messages are not forthcoming. We have the option to initiate a video call, as we see here, or an audio call. Okay, so we have that option here. And also, while we are at it, we realize that we need some input from someone within the marketing department because they are the people we are recruiting people from. So I've analyzed the whole thing, and I think I'm not too sure about some of the information in there. So I realized that we'll have to probably add another member to the team to also ask what she meant by whatever she had in the report that I have. Okay. Now, to do that, it means we are creating a group chat from a one-on-one chat that we are already having. Now, I've already looked at creating a group chat from the scratch. Okay, so this is creating a group chat from a chat you're already having. Okay, so with the people icon here, once you click on it, you have the option to add someone to this conversation that we are having. So I'll just add, let me add Beatrice. Okay, so you can also add as many people to create your group in here. So by clicking on it, now I realize I have a group chat created here. And by default, it separates this group chat from the one-on-one conversation that I'm having with Nora. So you see that there's our chat, and then this is the group chat that we created. So I can start the conversation from scratch. Okay. So this is a group chat, and I'm sure by now people will be wondering the difference between the group chats within the chat area and then the group chats within the Teams area. Now, the chat within the group chat within the chat area is basically for a more of a short-term conversation. So usually for those conversations that you have quickly, and then maybe you disband the group, or you just want to create a group chat where as and when you just come in and then drop your messages and all that. Now with this kind of group chat, you really don't have much control over it. So for instance, you can't create subgroups within this group chats. You're only limited to that entire space to create all your groups. And then once you add any member to the group, they are also able to add people to the group and all that. So if you want to control who is part of the team, it becomes a bit difficult. And also, if you add someone, the person sort of has the same power as all the members on the team. So they can even kick out people from the group that has been created, including the one who created the group. So if you want to manage all those situations, then you are looking at creating a more permanent group within Teams, which we'll be looking at later. Okay. Now we realize that anytime we create a group, for instance, we have by default, it just adds up our names as the members of the group. And so you can imagine if you have a lot of these groups with people like that, all you see is names, a lot of names, and you wouldn't even be able to tell which group they stand for and all that. So after creating a group, it's always important to edit the name of the group as you see here. So you see this pencil icon next to the names of the group. You click on it and then you go ahead and add a name to it, and then we save it. Okay. Now we also see that in the profile of the same team, we also see that it adds up all our profile as one. Now you cannot, by clicking on it, you have the option to also choose any profile picture that you want to use. If you are not okay with any of these images, you can upload your own image to it, just as we see in our WhatsApp platform that we have. Okay. So we've had our conversations for the day. Now you see the ellipses at the very end on the of this line, as we see here. We see some options there as well that you can look at your own time. So we see that you can open the chat in a new window. You can find in a chat. So if you want to find for specifics within a chat that you're having, you have that option here. You can schedule a meeting, you can screen share and all that. Okay, so you also see the option to leave or delete the group. Okay. All right. So after the day's work, just getting to the end of the day, I get a call that I'll have to be at the head office tomorrow morning. And looking at it, I realize that it might probably take my time for the day, and maybe I might get to the office late. Okay, but then again, I also remember that lunch will be coming around 11, 12, and I need to prompt my fellow colleagues to at least reserve my food for me. But then I also don't want them to feel like I'm thinking about food for the following day, as proactive as I am. So I would rather want to, instead of sending a message into the page and telling them that tomorrow they should reserve the food, I would rather want to send a scheduled message that will drop at the time the food will come, so that it will look like I sent the message at the time. So you can use the plus icon here and get the scheduled message icon here. Okay, so it used to be a hidden button in there. So by clicking on it, you're able to set a message and then, okay, so let me just type a message in there. Okay, and then let me just set it to tomorrow at 11. Okay, and then by just that, okay, so when I'm done, I can just send that message, and then you realize you get the information that you'll be sending on Friday at the time you set. Okay, so once the time is up, it will just send your message for you, and everything will be fine. Okay, so basically that's what we have in the chat area. So far we've looked at how we can navigate through the Teams application, and then we've also seen the chat area and see how we can interact with our colleagues on a day-to-day within the chat area to get our work done. Okay. Next up is the Teams application. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, if you are looking for a more permanent and more persistent group, something to sort of represent maybe your department, and then also get the breakdown of the units in the department, and you want to get those dedicated spaces for all of them to be able to have their own separate conversations and collaborations, then you are looking at creating a team. Okay, so under the team area, we see the option to add or join a team from here. Okay, so we see the option to create a channel. A channel is basically a subgroup within a team. Okay, so if you're an admin and you already have your teams created, but you just want to create a channel for one of the teams that you've created, then you can use this option. Also, you see that you can create a team from here, and then we see that we can join a team, a public team from here. Okay, so it's only public teams that you can join. If a team is private, you will need to be invited to the team. Okay, so we are going to look at how we can quickly create a team. So by clicking on it, we see the option to first we see some more options here. So apart from creating it from scratch, we see that Microsoft provides us with certain templates in here that we can just click and then customize it to our taste, and then we have our team created. Okay, so if you have anyone that fits your purpose, you can just select it and create your team. Or you see that you can create it from another team. So you already have existing team, but you need those same team members to create a different team. You can use that option here as well. Or you just have a group created within the M365 environment that has no team attached to it, but you now want to convert them into a team so that they can also have their collaboration. Then you can use this option here. Okay, so we'll be creating from scratch here. We'll have to give our team a name. Okay, so because you are creating this for the HR department, and mind you, this is part of the task that has been given to me by my director. Okay. Okay, so you can add a short description if you want. And then you also pay attention to the type of team that you are creating. Okay, so by clicking on it, we see that by default it's set to private, but then you also have the option to create a public group, and which means that the public will be made available to everybody and anyone can join. They are not restricted to who can join the team. Then we have a more private one where you have to invite people to join the team. Okay, so we'll keep the private option here, and then we'll create our team. Okay. Now, after creating the team, you have the option to add members to the team. Okay, so I can just add Nora because she is within my department. Okay, and because it's just for the department, so I'll just add her to it. Okay, so now just like that, we have our team created in here, so we can see the HR department team here. And then we realize that by default, we have a channel created called General. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, the channel is more of subgroups within the team that you've created. But even with the subgroupings, there's also that space that everyone is a member of. Okay, and that's the general. But then if you want to further get some specific units that you want to put people in as well, aside from the general, then you can also create more channels in here. So by clicking on the ellipsis next to the name of the department, you can see the option to add a channel. Okay. Now, in the adding a channel, okay, let me do training units. Okay, so we are creating a training unit for our trainers within the organization. Now, just like we saw, we can also create, we have different types of channels that we can create. Okay, there's a standard one, which will still make the channel available to all the members in the team. Okay, so the channel gives access to everyone who is already in the team. And then there's also a channel called a shared channel. Now, there's a channel that is not quite popular, but it's also there. Now, what this does is that in the case where we have collaboration with other departments, okay, now I'm creating a department for HR, and I've been communicating with the marketing team, but I can't add them to our HR team because they also belong to a different team. But then again, I also want to create that space where we can also collaborate on a specific project that we are working on. Now you can use that shared channel to do that. Okay, so with a shared channel, you're able to invite people in other departments, people outside of the organization to still collaborate within the team, but they are not really part of the team that has been created. So that's also a channel that you can look at and whenever you're creating your channels. And then we have a private one, which will be restricted to people that are specified to that channel. Okay, so once you're okay, you just click on the create. And then we have our channel created. Okay, so basically that's how we can create our teams and then also get our channels in there. Now it has a similar setup as the chat area, so I'm not going into it. But then as a team lead, you can also get the option to manage the team from here as well. Okay, so we see some options here. Now we can see the members of the team. We see the owners, the members. If you need to switch people from ownership to being members, you can do that from here. You have your pending request. And as I mentioned, you need to be invited to be part of this group. And you see that even just the invitation is not alone, it's not enough on its own. Okay, so you also need to be admitted into the group even after accessing the invitation. So anytime you share the team to other people to join, they come to this area where an admin of the team can go ahead and then admit them to the group, or even decline them from joining the group. So you have that. And you have where you can manage your channels in here as the admin of the page. So these are all settings that you can look at in your own time. Okay, so we see some settings that we can do to the team in here. Okay. All right, so we have that. So that's what we have within the teams area. So that's how we can group, we can create groups within our organization for a more permanent, session within our organizations. Okay. So far we've seen how we can assess our notifications, how we can get activities that are taking place within our teams. We've also seen how we can navigate through the Teams application. We've seen the chat area, and we've seen how we can start our conversations and even create group chats and all that. Now we've also seen how we can create our teams and then create sub teams to create that dedicated space for our users to always have that platform to have their conversations and all their meetings and all that. Okay, so next up is the calendar area. And that brings us to today's session on the meetings area. Okay. So the calendar is where we can have access to all the meetings that we are a part of, one, and then that's where we can also create or we can start a meeting on a go, and then we can also schedule our meetings as well. Okay, so as we can see here, at the top, we see you can join with an ID. Now, any meeting you create on Teams has an ID attached to it. So if you have any access to those ID, you can just click here and then input those ID here, and then you can join the meeting. Okay, now aside from that, you also have the option to create a meeting on the go. Okay, so maybe there's an emergency and you need to quickly call your team members to have a conversation. You can use this option here. So by clicking on it, you have the meeting with, so it picks the name of the account you are using or the profile you are using. Now you can always customize it if you want. And then once you're done, you can just start a meeting. It's going to start the meeting, and then you can invite people into it or get a link to share to other people to join the meeting. Okay. Now, aside from that, we also see that we have the option to actually schedule a meeting for a later time. Okay, so with this option here, by just clicking on it, you have the option to set up a meeting in there. And as part of our plans, I've been tasked to let me check on the router. Okay. Okay, so we've been tasked to schedule the interviews for those potential employees. Okay, so now we come to our calendar area. And aside from creating a meeting, or let me say a standard meeting, okay, we see this drop down just next to the meeting icon here. Now, when you click on it, you see some other type of meetings that you can create from here. Okay, so we see that we can create a webinar, a town hall, virtual appointment, or even a live event. Now, these meetings have their own solutions that they come with. Okay, so for instance, with the webinar, if you are looking to get a registration to a meeting you are trying to create, then you can look at setting up a webinar. Okay, and also one difference between a standard meeting and a webinar or all the other meeting types that we see here is that with the standard meeting, your control is a bit limited as to who can share their screen at which point in time, who can speak and who can, so it's an all-to-all sort of meeting that anyone can do whatever they want. Now, if you are looking for a more controlled space where you decide on who to do what, then you are looking at all the other types of meeting that you can set up. Okay, another thing that also affects the kind of meeting that you want to create is the number you are expecting. Okay, so for instance, with the standard meeting and a webinar, you can take up to 1,000 people. If you are looking at more than up to 10,000 people, then you are looking at maybe a town hall or a live event. Okay, and they all have a different way of setting up. We'll be looking at how to set up a standard meeting first, and then we'll look at how to set up our webinar. And then from there, we can see how to join our meetings and all that. Okay. So by clicking on it, we have our standard setup here. Okay, so to set up our meeting, we have the option to add a title to it. This is the let me do applicants. Okay, and then in this case, we have their email addresses, so we'll add them in here for the purpose of this training. I'll just add Nora here, and then we'll set a time. So a time we've agreed for the meeting. Okay, because it's going to be an online meeting, we'll just set. Let's do it tomorrow, and then you can indicate the time for the meeting or the start time for it in here. Okay, so we want to do at 10 a.m. You can also set the end date and time as you see here. Okay, so it's not going to take more than 2 hours, so just stick to it in here. Now you also see the option to set um, the all day option here. Now, mostly what this helps to do is, whenever you set up a meeting, it sort of updates your calendar, even within Outlook. Okay, and it sort of blocks that area for any other um, meeting that will be scheduled at that same time. It also informs people who will be trying to get you into a meeting at that time. Okay, so by marking your calendar as all, it means you are blocking the whole day within your calendar area, and so that people will know that maybe you are off for that day, so you can't join any other meeting. Now we also see some suggested time in here as well. So we realize that as and when you add people to as you add attendees to it, it's able to generate some suggested times for you based on the assessment of their calendar as well. Okay, so it's able to do all this in the background and give you a convenient time to set up your meeting. Okay. Now you also see the option to create a meeting that will repeat, a repetitive meeting, right? Okay, so if it's going to be a daily, weekly, monthly, so you have all this option here. And you also have the custom. Maybe if you want to set it to every 3 days and all that, you have that option here as well. For the purpose of this, I'll just leave it to do not repeat. And then we also see the option to add a channel. Okay, so we've already seen the channel within Teams. And then the option we have here is to actually send the meeting invite directly to a channel. Okay, so if I'm creating this meeting and I need to send it to the recruitment team to be able to have access to the invite, then I can go ahead and do that. And once I click on it, it's going to send the meeting to the page. If you also want to send it as personal invites to them, it's also going to personally send it to all the users within the general tab as well. So you have that option here as well. Okay. So we have all that. You can type in the details for the meeting, and then we have the agenda. We won't touch on this here. Now, aside from that, you also have some more options that you can do over here for the meeting that you are creating. Now, you see that by default, people in your organization or guests can bypass the lobby. Okay, the lobby is some sort of a waiting space for people who are trying to join a meeting that you've created. Okay, so we want to say that for every meeting, we want people to wait until they are admitted into the meeting. Okay, so if you need to create that kind of thing, then you're looking at managing your lobby from here. Okay, so who can bypass means those who have exceptions to your lobby, you can set that here for the meeting. And then you can also set to record and transcribe automatically from here. Okay, so once you do this, it means you don't have to go into the meeting and record again. Now we see some more options that we can do here that you can take your time and look into it. Okay, so for instance, we see that by default, the Q&A is not enabled. Okay, so by enabling this, you have it enabled within the meeting that you'll be having. So once you're okay with the setup, you can just save it. You can just save it here. Okay. And it says done. Okay. Now at the top, we also see some options that we can configure here. Okay, so by default, anytime you set up a meeting, it shows as busy in both the one who created the meeting and all the attendees within the meeting. Okay, so if for any reason you don't want it to show as busy, you can go ahead and change that status from here. Okay, so maybe you're not sure if the meeting will even come on, so you just want to let the user know that it's just tentative. Okay, so you just indicate it here for them, and then when it asks to their calendar, it's going to indicate that as well. Okay, now you are setting the meeting, and then you know that you have some users who have a different time zone and all that. You want to indicate that time zone as well. You can also change it from here, so that when you send your meeting, someone doesn't join at a later date in there. Okay, now you can also generate some response to the meeting you are sending. Okay, so if you want to be sure that people have seen and you want to get responses from them that will be joining, by default, you see that those options are turned on. And we can also allow people to forward the invitations that they've received. So we have that option here as well. If you don't need it, you can turn it off in here. Now we also see one option that says require registration. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, any meeting that requires a registration to it is a webinar. Okay, so if you do any changes here, it's going to change the whole meeting setup into a webinar setup, and we'll be looking at that later. Okay, so we'll just leave it to none. We don't require any registration in here. And that's it. So we have our meeting set up. And then we also see one other, aside from the details where we were currently, you can just switch to the scheduling assistant. That helps you to check the calendars of all those you've added as participants to this meeting. And you are also able to use that to set up a convenient time for everyone to join the meeting that you are trying to set up. Okay, so basically that's an added feature in there that you can use so that when you create your meetings, people don't come complaining that they have other things to do on that time. And it is also for us as users to also know that updating your calendar is always important so that when people are trying to set up this kind of meetings, they can also get the right information to send a meeting to you. Okay, so once you're done, you can just send your meeting, and it's going to notify all the participants in the meeting on the scheduled meeting that we have here. Okay, so this is the meeting we created. Okay, when we come back and we click on it, it gives us an information about what we just created. Okay, so we see we can copy the link and share with people. Okay, we get all the information that we want to see here. Now, if you need to edit anything, you have that option to do that. If you need to join the meeting before the set time, you have that option here as well. Okay, and then if you open up the meeting, when you get to the end of the meeting, you see the meeting ID that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so this meeting ID you can share with people as well and they can join. Okay. Now, before we look at joining a meeting, let's quickly look at setting up a webinar. Okay. Now, so by clicking on this, you have this interface here. You see it's a bit different from what we saw earlier in the standard meeting. So we have the two options, the setup and then the registration. Okay. So definitely we have to give our meeting a title. So say start training. Okay. And then we set our dates to the following day. Let's set our start time to later in the day at 2. And then it's a 1 day thing. So we just, okay, so it's 2 hours. Let's set it to up to 4. Okay. Now you have the option to also add a description to it so that those who are attending will have an idea of the meeting. Okay. Now, because I'm the one setting up the meeting, by default, I'm the organizer. If there are other people I want to delegate that position to, I can add all of them as co-organizers and they'll have the same control as me. Okay, so you can add all those people in here. Okay, so I add them in here. Now, this is for only internal, yes. So if you have presenters for your meeting that you are creating, you can also set them separately from the organizers. Okay, so this shows that everyone has what they have to do within the meeting that you are trying to create. Okay, so you can go ahead and add your presenters in here. Okay, now these are presenters from your organization. If you have anyone coming from outside the organization, you can add them so that the people within the organization know that, okay, we are getting external people coming to train us. Okay, so you have that set up in there. And then you can also set the access level for the organization or for the event, sorry. So if you want to limit it to your organization, you have that option here. And then we have the option to also make it public to everyone, even people outside of the organization. Okay. Now you also see the option to allow sharing to social media from the event site. Okay. So we have all these options there that makes it easy for you to market the meeting that you are trying to have. Okay. Now, once you are done with the setup here, you can save and then send the invite. So it's going to notify all the organizers and the presenters of the meeting that has been set up. Okay. Now you can go ahead and publish it if you are okay, but if you still want to do some more setup with the event, you can go ahead and do it. As you are at it, you can also view a draft of um how your meeting is going to look like. Okay, so by just a click of it, it shows you how your meeting is going to look like. Okay. So in the presenter bio, we are able to sort of add some um, biography of the presenters that are coming for the event. So if it's something you want to set up, you can do that as well. And then also we can change the theme. We can change the theme of the event as well. So this is default. If you need to add a banner for your meeting, maybe you let your designers design some simple banner for the meeting. You can do that and then upload it from here. So by clicking on it, you can get the size required. So you have some information here of the size you need. It shouldn't exceed 5 MB and all that. Okay, so once you're there, you can just choose an image using this option here and then upload it, and it will serve as your banner over here. Now you also see the option to add your logo as well. Okay, just so that the meeting event is more personalized to your organization. Now you can also change the theme color as you see here. So you see that all the buttons I see here are all with the color. If you need to change it to fit your organization color, you can do that as well from here. Okay, so once you are done, you can go ahead and publish your site. Okay, now once you publish it, it generates a share link for you, as you can see here. Okay, so you can just copy this link and then share it with people. Okay, but mostly the link is a very long one, and sometimes you have to shorten it and then you can before you share it with people. So that's something you can also look at. Okay, now as and when people register, you come here and then you see information about those who have registered or those who registered and canceled it. And then you can follow up on why all that is happening and all that. Okay, you can also set a limit to the registration you are trying to look out for. Okay, so if you have limited capacity to take for the meeting, you can do all that here as well. Now, by default, when you set up the webinar, it generates a simple register option there. So once you click on it, you are registered to it. But then if you need to generate more information from those who are trying to assess the event, and mostly those who are coming from outside, because those who are already inside, we know them. Okay, so you can go ahead and add fields to it. So say we want to know the organization they're coming from, we want to know the industry they're coming from. Okay, so just stick to this. And then once you're done, we save it so that it updates the site that we just published. Okay, so this is going to help us to see what we've done so far. Okay, so we see the options here to register over here. So once you click on it, you see the option here. You can just input the details. And once you're done, you just register. And just like that, you're part of the meeting or event that has been created. Okay. So basically, that's how to set up a webinar. Okay. Now, quickly, let me just do the last part of the training, that is joining a meeting, so that we see some of the options we have there, and then we can call it a day. So let me pick one of the meetings. Okay, let me add myself to this. And let me send the update. I'm doing this because I want to switch in between. I want to switch to a browser so that I can join the meeting from there. Because I'm already in a meeting, I won't be able to join. Okay. So this is my other account in here. So I see the meeting invite here. And by clicking on it, I have the option to join the meeting as we see here. Okay, so once I click on it, okay, so we have some, because it's in the browser, you need to allow some permissions like the microphone and then using your camera. Okay, so we just allow that for the purpose of the training. Okay. And then we have some basic setup we need to do before we join the meeting that we're trying to join. So if you need to make sure your camera is turned off, you can do all that. If you need to keep your camera on, but then change the background to, you have that option here to do. Okay, so we see that we can change the background to a more presentable one, especially when you are in a space that is not that presentable. You have a number of backgrounds to choose from, or you can basically just blur your background for the meeting. So you have all that in there. Okay. So once you're done with the setup, you check if you are muted. Okay, so you need to join a meeting muted and all that. You have checked everything and you're okay. You just click on join now. Okay. So as we can see, we are now in a meeting that has been created. Okay, and just like what we are seeing in our Teams environment, you see the same thing here. At the top is where we see all the options to navigate through a meeting. Okay, so we see the first space, which is for our chats, all the conversations that takes place within the meeting. We can have access to it over here. Now we also see an option for the people within the meeting. Okay, so you can see all the people that have joined the meeting. And if anyone has been invited and they are not in yet, you can see all of them here as well. Now you can raise your hands to draw the presenter's attention to the fact that you have a contribution or a question to make to ask. Or if anyone also raises their hands, you can you can get all those people from here as well. Okay. So you have the option to also react while someone is presenting. Maybe you want to react with some emojis and some icon. You can just do that with the react icon here. Now you can also change the view of what you are seeing currently. If you need a different view, you can always change it to your preference. Okay. Now, if you need to take notes in the within the meeting, you can also do that as well. Now, we also see that even within a meeting, we can open some applications in here and still collaborate with our colleagues on within the meeting. Okay. Now, with the more option, we see some more settings here that we can look at as well. Okay. And then we see the camera, we see the microphone. So if you turn it off initially and now you have to turn it on, you can do all that here. We see the option to also share, either share a window or share the entire screen that we are working on, the PC that we are working on. You have that option here. So by clicking on it, you have to indicate what specifically we want to share with the people in the meeting. And that's something you have to always pay attention to because sometimes you end up sharing stuff you don't really want to share. Okay, and also with that option, you're able to do what we call request for access, where people can get access to your PC. Okay.